Hey there, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast, the show that's all about helping photographers just like you build a thriving business without sacrificing your sanity. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned full-time photographer and marketing coach, here to fill your earbuds each week with practical tips, real-life stories, and a whole lot of encouragement. So if you're ready to dive in, let's get to it because this girl means business. Hey, friend, and welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. This week, I want to talk about a little bit of a pet peeve I have when it comes to branding and marketing in the photography space. Now, I am not going to say all the things I'm going to say as a way of like calling anybody out in particular. This is more of a general observation that I have seen over the last couple of years of working with photographers, and I just feel like it needs to be talked about. So the other day, I'm watching TV with my family, and this commercial comes on, and it didn't really make sense to me at first. I was like, what's happening in this commercial? I didn't quite get it. My husband looks at me and he goes, oh man, they're really calling out the iPhone. And I was like, what? And then I realized that it was for, I think like the Google Pixel or whatever the Google phone is. And they were blatantly calling the iPhone vanilla. So basically the commercial is you have all these people who are doing things that they normally do with their phone. So one guy like comes downstairs to leave for the day and he's like patting his pockets and he turns around and on the counter next to his keys and wallet is like a vanilla ice cream cone. And then you have someone else who's like recording a video of themselves and the vanilla ice cream cone is set in the place where like the phone would be on the ring light. Another person's like jogging and they have a vanilla ice cream cone strapped to their arm, like we're on an armband. And the idea was that they were basically trying to say like the iPhone is vanilla. It's plain, it's boring. It's not anything exciting. If you really want to stand out and be different, then you need to go with this Google phone. So it got me thinking and I was like, "Ooh, that's a really good like visual analogy for something that I have been seeing and noticing and feeling within the photography space for a while now." And I didn't really know kind of how I wanted to approach it or like if it was something I really felt like that strongly about to talk about. I have talked about it a little bit in one-on-one type settings with people, but not so much on this podcast. So we're going to talk about it today. Okay, so here is my just very blunt observation. And that is that most of photography brands out there right now are very vanilla. And again, I do not say this to be hurtful or rude in any way. However, you can give me 10 different photographers' websites, and they are all basically going to look and sound the same. You can show me 100 different photography Instagram pages, and most of them are going to look and sound very similar. And the reason behind this, I believe, is that when we are trying to figure out who we are as a brand, so while we are trying to figure out like, what is my editing style? What is my, voice that I want to have online? What is my presence? What is my brand? While we're figuring all that out, it's really, really easy to look at what everybody else around us is doing, to look at what the trend is, what's the popular thing that people are noticing and to lean towards that. So what this makes me think of is way back when I was in college, I was working at a summer camp. And I worked with this girl who was a camp counselor with me. And we both really loved to read. And so a lot of times we would talk about like books we had read, things like that. And so one day, and I don't know why this just like stuck in my brain, but I've also always really loved the psychology behind things. So she tells me about this book that she had read as one of her like college classes, or like someone in her college classes had told her about it. And it was Freakonomics. And for some reason, one of the concepts that like stuck in my brain that she told me about that she'd read in this book was about the cycle of baby names and how society and who was considered like the rich and famous or the popular, those in the high society, they dictate the cycle of baby names. And the fact that, you look at baby names throughout time and you've got, if celebrities are naming their children things like Claire and Elizabeth and Sarah, then it trickles down and you start to see more of like the middle class, the lower class start naming their children those names as well. And then it starts back over again. So then they notice the trickle down effect. The upper echelon starts saying, well, I don't want to have the same name as like everybody else. So I'm going to name my kid Apple. I'm going to name my kid, some random bizarre name. And then again, the cycle proceeds to continue. It trickles down. Other people start going, ooh, if the high mighty celebrities, if the upper class are naming their kids these names, then I'm going to name my kids those names. And over time, the cycle just continues. So I say that to say that that is what I feel like happens with trends in the photography space. And really just kind of in general, like you look at anything with, marketing or just style, all the things, it starts at the top, it works its way down. And by the time it works its way down, the top has moved on to something else. And it's this continuous cycle. So with photography, what I see happening a lot, and I'm going to use the like trend of kind of this light, airy film look as an example, because that's the one that I feel like is kind of the most prevalent and has been for a while. So what happens is you have these, high-end photographers, the ones that are kind of the ones everybody follows. They have a big following. They're well known in the photography space. They're the ones that are kind of showing up online a lot. They're teaching courses. They're doing all the things. And they start creating a brand in an effort to stand out ultimately that goes against the grain of what everybody else is doing. So at the time, it was everybody else was doing like true to life or more muted and deeper, darker colors, very rich colors, almost oversaturated colors. And so they said, well, we're going to go the opposite. I want to shoot more kind of like this film style. I want it to feel light. I want it to feel airy. I want the colors to be kind of washed out. And that became the style. And then it trickles down from there. And so it, goes from the ones who start the trend and then it goes down. And this one seems to have kind of lasted the longest, in my opinion. Now I've only been doing this for 14 years. So I'm sure you could go back in time and you see a larger trend going back further. But in my span of time of being in the photography space, this is the one I've seen kind of last the longest. Now, what I notice today is that kind of the remnants of this same trend. And what's happening is you have photographers who are new and up and coming photographers, and they're trying to emulate the ones they see going before them, the ones that they deem successful. So they match that style. They emulate that style, that light, that bright, that airy style. And while it's really fine, like your style is your style. I'm not here to say like you should have a specific style or not. I'm not saying don't shoot light, bright, airy. It needs to match who you are as a photographer. The part that I'm saying is one of my biggest pet peeves is when I start to see that the trend is leaning towards inauthenticity. So in what I do, from being a business coach, a marketing coach, having the greenhouse coaching membership, I have my photographers in there that I work closely with. I review a ton of photography websites on a regular basis. Like I'm constantly looking at what other photographers are doing to give them feedback and answer questions that they have. And the thing I've started noticing is that when I get to know the photographer and then I go look at their brand and I look at their website, the two don't match up in my mind. I'll give you a perfect example of this. I worked with a photographer a couple of years ago. It was one of my first like long-term kind of coaching clients. And she was this like bubbly, effervescent, funny, sarcastic, like just a really like the kind of girl you're around and you're laughing nonstop. She did not take life seriously. I don't want to say it like past tense. She's still with us, but like when I was working with her in our first few calls that we did together, I was like, this girl has so much energy and like she radiates just color. Like, have you ever been around somebody and just their energy level? You're like, this person lives their life in full color. Like, there is no grays in their world. Everything is bright and bold and loud and fun and playful. But then when I went over to her website, it's like she took a copy and paste of someone else's style and put it into her website because she thought that is what her clients would want. She thought, well, this is what all the big, quote unquote, big photographers are doing. This is what all the people in my area who are seemingly booked out are doing. So she created this brand that felt calm and quiet and serene and muted and that light, bright, airy style. And I remember having a conversation with her, and it was after I had done her website review. And I was there for SEO purposes. I was doing her review for SEO purposes. I sent it to her. We were getting on a call to talk about it. And I said, before we go through my review of your website, I just have to say, your website is beautiful. Your work is beautiful. Everything is aesthetically very pleasing. I said, however, it doesn't feel like the you that I know that I've met in these calls. And she was like, yeah, I thought about that. Like, when my clients meet me and we go on our shoots, like we just have so much fun together. And I love, like, we just laugh and we play and we like goof around and I make silly jokes and weird dad jokes and all the things. And she's like, but I felt like that was not professional. And I said, here's the thing about art. Okay. We are artists. We are photographers. We are artists. There is nothing that has to be professional about what you're doing. Now, yes, there are some things you want to have some decor about and you want to act in a professional manner about to some degree, but you are an artist and people are buying into you for your vision and your personality that you put into these photos. So if you're masking that in an attempt to look like what somebody else has done or to be like what someone else has deemed as the thing to be, then you are going to end up with clients who feel that disconnect. They're going to come to your website. They're going to see this one thing. They're going to meet you and it's going to be something completely different. And in their mind, they're going, whether consciously or subconsciously, they're kind of like, these things don't align. Like how is this person that is this bubbly, bright, colorful, funny, silly, goofy, person, the same person who on her website had this like perfectly styled photo of her holding a camera in front of a white backdrop and she's wearing neutral colors and all of the language is very flowery and like soft and gentle. And that's not the same thing that they're getting in their session. So my point is that when I look at photographers' websites, I then go look at who they are as a person. And I'm starting to see, the more I look into this, the more I see that disconnect. The more I see like, oh, this is not the same person that you would get if you went and met them in real life. And that's not always easy to tell if you're just meeting someone online, if I'm just looking at their website and then seeing them on social media, or I've had one quick, phone call with somebody. But the ones that I have gotten to know more in depth, I see that disconnect a lot more. I'm going to give one more kind of pop culture reference here, and then I'm going to get to your homework assignment for this episode. So as we know, unless you've been living under a rock, it is like Taylor Swift's world right now. She just released a new album. She has been on these like talk shows and radio shows. And I saw a headline from her just over the weekend or on the other day where basically she was saying like, people think that I'm more fragile than I really am. Like I am way more strong and I am way more like resilient than people give me credit for. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting point, because when I think about, and I'm not a Swiftie, I'm not someone who like dives into all the Easter eggs and all the things. Like that's not something I'm spending time on. I kind of missed that boat by a couple of years and I'm fine with that. And my kids are not Swifties, so I'm not in that world. But I do think that from an outsider perspective, based on just kind of her last couple of albums and her last like kind of chunk of time where she sort of went out of the media and all the things, we'll just say prior to her current relationship and status, there was this sort of vision that she put out there about herself that was this quiet, soft, brooding person who like wrote these like really melodramatic poetry type songs that was just a little bit more moody, like just all the things. I'm running out of other words to describe it. Then she comes back with this new relationship, this new like interest in being kind of in the limelight again a little bit. And she puts out this new album and it kind of shocks people's senses. And they either like they love it or they're kind of like, whoa, this is not what we were expecting. Because the Taylor that they knew was the vision that she'd given them before this, like that soft kind of more introspective, quiet type person. And I recognized me as like, oh, that's exactly what I've done is I've projected onto her who I thought she was based on the brand she had created up until recently. And so when this other thing came out, it kind of shocked the system and was like, whoa, hold on, that I now have to recalibrate who I thought she was in my brain. That's the same thing that's happening with your clients. If they're coming to your website and they are seeing one version of you, and then they're meeting you in real life and spending time with you, and they're getting a different version of you, the disconnect is there. And they're going to ultimately have kind of this feeling deep inside that's like, wait a minute, who is she really? Because she's one thing here and then she's another thing here. What version of her am I actually getting? And that, whether we believe, subconsciously or consciously notice it, it can affect how people trust us. And I know that's going really deep. You're like, Kendra, it's not that serious. It's a website. It's, I get it. But as a brand, these days, 99.9% of the people's first interaction with you is what they see online. So that is who they know you as. That's it. Like that's all they know. They very rarely are getting to actually interact with you in a normal human setting until they go to your photo shoot. And even if you do a quick phone call, it's not always the same as like when they actually spend time with you at a session. And so again, it just drops these little seeds of like, well, wait a minute. If she's one way all over here online, she's another way in person. Like who's the real person? Like what's the real brand here? So the ultimate goal should be that your brand matches who you are as a person. And so your homework assignment for this episode, for this week, is I want you to really take a look at the brand that you're putting out online for your photography business. Do you feel like it matches who you are as a person? Now, here is one thing I can probably already guess is going through your head. Okay, well, what if I'm a newborn photographer and, families of newborns, like you think of like sweet, quiet, like sleepy babies and really beautiful fabrics and, all the things, like it doesn't make sense for me to be kind of the loud, like colorful, bright, bold person or to be this like funny, sarcastic, silly person. I disagree. I completely disagree because there are people out there who are looking at all the websites of newborn photographers and going, I don't feel like I connect with any of these because our family is loud. Our family is colorful. Our family is, we as a couple, we're nerdy, we're silly, we're goofy. We want these photos to embrace that, like embrace who we are. And if they don't see themselves reflected in a photographer, then they're going to feel like that they don't really have an option for them out there. So by actually being more yourself in your brand, then you are going to attract a whole audience of people who don't feel like that they have anybody else that gets them. So by infusing your own personality into your brand, you're actually opening yourself up to a whole other plethora of audience out there. So back to your homework assignment, I want you to take this week to really look at what is it that you're putting out there into the world? What is it that you're putting out there on your website, on your socials, blogs, all the things? Does it match who they're going to actually interact with when they come to meet you in person. And I don't mean like, oh, well, I can be the soft, quiet person at the sessions, but I'm really this other person. You shouldn't have to do that. You should just have to be yourself. So does your brand match who you are as a person? And if the answer is yes, then awesome. I love that. I want you to lean more into that. How can you put even more of who you are into your brand? If you feel like there is a disconnect, if you feel like your website is that vanilla ice cream cone that looks just like and sounds just like every other photographer out there, then I encourage you to look for ways that you can start to turn that around and you can start to infuse more and more of who you are into your brand and your website. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. I feel like this was definitely a soapboxy type episode, but there was just a lot of things in the last couple of weeks that kind of made me start thinking about this. And I was like, I just feel like this needs to be said. And honestly, if you have a podcast and people listen to it, then why not say what you're thinking in the moment, right? That's what this is for. All right, I hope you have a wonderful week. If you have questions, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Girl Means Business or shoot me an email at kendra@girlmeansbusiness.com. Have a great week, and I will see you back here next week, same time, same place.